Welcome back, everybody. There's been a lot happening across streamer Twitter this week, and it's been no secret that I've been going to make a video about Ghost and the sexual assault allegations put against him. I had originally planned to include his side of the story from his own words, but after agreeing to do this, he changed his mind when the time of asking came. What ensued was nothing more than a campaign on his Twitter to discredit me, and his followers accused me of using the video for clout and money. To be clear, these videos cannot be monetized because of the subject matter, and I don't really care what you think about my reasons for doing it. However, from my point of view, his all-out attack on my character gave me the impression he had something to hide. I'm very happy with the work myself and other victims have done to make various platforms better spaces, and at this point, none of this has ever fallen back on any of the victims. It's very clear that I am ridiculed for questioning others' behaviours and questioning accountability when I have always backed it up, but the same can rarely be said for anybody that challenges me. It is important to know exactly how this video came around to being made for many different reasons, and that I approached Pinnapy and got permission to use her side of what happened, and she did not approach me. I have asked Ghost and several of his friends for anything that would help from Ghost's perspective, and have been given very little in return. They seem to have a lot to say about Pinnapy, but could offer me very little in the way of evidence or even dated written accounts. I have to be clear about this because I'm often accused of not asking for the other side of a story when the truth is, if I've come to the point of making a video, it's because one side has a lot of evidence. It is never just a person who approaches me with one or a couple of anecdotes, and believe me, I get plenty of those. This is not to say their story isn't valid, it's just that I cannot make a video without a significant amount of evidence. I hope this video helps you understand the information about the subject at hand. I'll be referring to the two main people involved as their handles, Ghost and Pinnapy, whose names are Nick and Rose, respectively. As many of you know, I took a trip to the USA in September and October, ending up in San Diego for the last week to attend TwitchCon. I bumped into Ghost a couple of times on the Thursday night after the partner party in the San Diego Gas Lamp District. It was a hectic night meeting everybody, and I didn't get round to talking to him for any considerate length of time. During this night, I was approached by two different people from different friendship groups who asked me why I hadn't yet made a video on Ghost. I was pretty confused because, although I seemed to remember somebody mentioning Ghost, I didn't know of any issues with him. I was told I should look into it when I arrived home, and once I got back, that's what I did. I was pointed towards a few TwitLongers about the alleged assault, and of course we're going to be taking a look through those, but I need you to keep in mind that I cannot read absolutely all the evidence that I have because there is far too much and a video would take way too long. But what I aim to do is cover all the key points from all the different evidence. And if I get clearance from the victim to share the document they have with this video, then I will. However, it's obvious I want to keep the victim free from any more unnecessary discourse or attacks. It is important to note that when Ghost met Pinnapy, he was 36 years old and Pinnapy was 20 years old. The first TwitLonger from Pinnapy is described by her as rushed and written at a bad time, but it does not contradict anything that she says at a later date. She mentions that Ghost had admitted to being in love with her, and how she found internet searches looking to find explicit content on her on his laptop that was lent to her, as well as looking for porn of people that specifically resembled Pinnapy. She said that she'd given him a chance to apologise publicly, which he agreed to, but then backtracked because he didn't want to admit to what he claimed was accidental touching of her ass and boobs. She also mentioned that in places in which they stayed that two separate beds were booked and they only got one bed, he would not attempt to let hotel staff know about it and said, "It's okay, you don't mind," to Pinnapy when that happened. He claims that Pinnapy was fine about sharing a bed and that he asked her constantly. He admits that he had feelings for her, but said they were non-sexual. He admits to touching her inappropriately, but claims it's accidental. What I noticed about this first set of TwitLongers was that Ghost did not respond to all the claims made against him, one of the biggest being the porn search claim. But there is one particular paragraph that grabs my attention. I am so sorry that anything we shared has made her uncomfortable, and I'm proud of her for speaking up about it as I would want any person to do. That said, not once did I commit any non-consensual act. As anyone who knows me knows, I constantly apologize and ask if everything I'm doing is okay. And I'm disappointed our communication was not better through the ending of our friendship. I do not alienate or silence her from any communities and have definitely not taken any steps to keep her quiet. It starts off as a non-apology, as he doesn't apologize for any actions he may have done, but actually anything they ever shared, but then says he's proud of her for speaking up. This obviously begs the question, why would he be proud of her for speaking up if he believed her to be lying? I can't imagine any scenario where if somebody was telling lies directed at me, I would feel proud of them for speaking out about it. Then he goes on to say he did not commit any non-consensual act after the admission of touching her inappropriately. Of course, he claims that it was accidental, but either way, he definitely did. It is my opinion that this suggests he is trying to get away with saying as little as possible, whilst partly admitting to indecent touching, so it looks like he's admitted his mistake. The TwitLonger I saw before approaching Pinnapi was this one. This is much longer and a much more detailed account of what happened. She was still not overly happy with how she wrote it, which led to the document being made, which Pinnapi shared with me, and we will go through that later. She did keep this TwitLonger up and available for public reading. Pinnapi once again explains that Ghost was in a long-term relationship. This time she adds that at the time of their trip, Pinnapi was 20 and that Ghost was 36 or 37. She describes herself as someone who suffers with autism and chronic fatigue syndrome, with the chronic fatigue making her quite physically dependent on others and the Asperger's making her a vulnerable target for predatory behaviour and abuse. Pinnapi says she's bisexual and a grey asexual. What this means is that for the vast majority of the time, she has no sexual attraction or urges at all. With this in mind, it was important for her to trust any friend she had, as her disabilities make her easy to manipulate and take advantage of. She states that in the first night in Japan, they had 2 beds, but Ghost pressured her to sleep with him in his sleeping space, but she refused and he used guilt tactics to encourage her to sleep in his space by saying he was lonely and cold, once waking her in the middle of the night, but once again she refused. She awoke the next morning to messages from Ghost saying that he'd cancelled the accommodation and rebooked a different hotel. This hotel room only had 1 bed, and the first night they stopped there was the night of the first alleged sexual assault. This started with what Pinnapi described as a somewhat consensual back massage to ease the pain she was feeling. No lines were crossed in this instance, according to her, and she went to go to sleep under the covers facing the wall. On Ghost's return, Pinnapi claims that he started touching her back, hair, lining of her underwear, before eventually touching her naked breast. Pinnapi instantly recoiled and expressed her feeling of being extremely uncomfortable with what was happening, and he claimed it was an accident and that he'd never do anything to make her feel uncomfortable. Feeling very afraid, Pinnapi retreated to the bathroom, scared of what might happen, yet particularly if she tried to leave. She eventually got back into bed facing the wall, gripping her breast as he proceeded to tell her how happy he was that she was on this trip, and proceeded to stroke her back and touched her ass after she once again recoiled and told him of her unhappiness at what he had done. Pinnapi then pretended to be asleep, and Ghost pulled her tightly towards her, making satisfied noises, and she could feel his clothed erect penis against her clothed ass. She slept in a very uncomfortable position all night in an attempt to be as far away as possible from him. The following morning, Ghost took her passport, travel cards, and any means that would enable her to get away, and claimed it was that so she didn't lose anything as she was clumsy. From then on, he would start to speak for her in the company of others. He then bought her hundreds of dollars worth of pretty dresses so he could take pictures of her, and she felt that this was an attempt to buy her silence. Pinnapi had tried to message a friend at one point of the trip and managed to get through a message about how anxious and uncomfortable she was, but did not manage to get out a longer message she had intended to send, as her phone was taken off of her by Ghost, and he took her back to the bar to get more alcohol. Ghost would later try and touch her naked breast on another occasion whilst unconsensually spooning her again, but he could only touch her side. She was able to resist being close to his crotch this time, however. On return from Japan, Ghost continued to send lots of money, gifts, and equipment to Pinnapi, and would use guilt and other manipulative tactics to get her to give in. Although there were times she did accept because she had become reliant on him sending and paying for her food. Around this time, others had noticed Ghost's conversations would revolve around Pinnapi, and he seemed to be obsessed with her. Once Pinnapi had fully accepted what had happened to her in Japan, she decided she needed to distance herself from Ghost, but he would start to plant information in conversations about all the generosity he had shown her. Ghost started to try and track what Pinnapi was doing and following which conversations or chats she was a part of, and he would guilt trip her for not responding to his messages. Despite making it clear that his behaviour was making her feel anxious, he didn't want to change how he was acting. Pinnapi had decided to cut ties with Ghost once it was clear his behaviour would not change, and asked him to keep it private, as he had previously always commented on their friendship when there were ever any issues to people within their circle via direct messages, and that had always made the situation much worse than necessary. There is more to the TwitLonger, but given the time constraints of the video, I think it's important to go over some of the evidence to back what Pinnapi said and how I approached Ghost. So when I first asked Ghost to answer questions on what happened, he had agreed. As you can see by the screenshot, he said, sure, but only after giving a long reply about harassment he had received from Pinnapi. It reads, "Hey JTX, thank you for asking permission. From a sense of being open and honest, of course, and that has been my approach since day one. But mental health-wise, it's generally not something I like to revisit. I experienced close to 2 years of stalking and harassment from this person, and even to this day, their shadow lurks over certain people in the community, i.e. banned in channels of people I have never met, an entire stream team, etc. So even sitting here writing this causes anxiety, as you can imagine. I know you do your research on things, which I appreciate and makes me more comfortable. False allegations are such a minority, such as the bullshit thrown at you, so navigating that is difficult, as sexual assault is not a joke or to be used as a petty revenge tactic, and of course, victims deserve to be believed and heard. TLDR, sure. I told him that I wasn't accusing him, and he told me that he respected that, and then said he was going to bed and to leave anything in the DM and he would reply later. But he also didn't want to start any cycles again and mentioned stalking harassment and how Pinnapi had left him alone after he called her out. You'll notice that at almost every point, stalking and harassment is mentioned by Ghost, and this is important for later on. There's another set of messages here that are from a separate subject. I saw Ghost spread some misinformation about me on somebody's stream and corrected him, and he apologised. I found it strange that he was commenting, but it turned out that the other person involved in the discourse with me on Twitter had become their partner, and this was actually something that was nothing to do with Ghost. Around this time, I reached out to Pinnapi and explained how I'd come to hear about the situation before asking if she wanted to give any evidence towards a potential video. And after a chat, and in helping her understand the previous victims I had helped and what I did, she agreed to give me access to a document that she had put together for everything that had happened between her and Ghost. It's worth pointing out that the receipts and accounts within this document were both shocking and impressive. Shocking because of the information contained, but impressive because of the amount of well-documented information. Pinnapi attributes the organisation and accounts of what happened to her autism. After reading the TwitLongers, I put together some questions for Ghost and asked him if he was ready to answer them, but he replied with this. To be honest, Joe, I have disclosed all that I am comfortable with sharing in previous TwitLongers. This topic is a huge trigger for me and has affected my mental health immensely. As discussed with you previously, false sexual assault claims are incredibly rare, and even talking about them can be damaging to actual victims. I asked him once more at this point, as I had seen Pinnapi's document, and with all the evidence and screenshots it contained, I thought it would be best for him to respond or offer something to back his own claims, given the mountain of evidence facing him, but he never replied. Instead, he took to Twitter to make our DMs public and started what is, in my opinion, an attempt to discredit me and any work I have done before, and even accused me of nearly taking a human life with my claims before leaving Twitter for a holiday. So it was put out into public, and that was Ghost doing. And straight away, he makes it look like I'm trying to ruin his life. This is pretty interesting, seeing as he was an advocate of my content on the 2nd of September, and he even tweeted about it. So what we're about to take a look through is the document that Pinappi has compiled on Ghost. Of course, we are only going to see a snippet of what is in the document because the document is vast and everything is very well accounted for. As I said, due to the time constraints, we're not going to be able to look through everything. So as you can see under February here, there are many instances of grooming, inappropriate comments, and kind of strange things you just would not say. And it's quite obvious that Pinappi is not complicit in this. He also asked Pinappi not to tell his girlfriend that he's helping pay for the trip. He also says here, and I need you to know, Japan would not be all separate rooms and stuff. Obviously you would have your own space, I just can't afford double accommodation. I don't mean that to sound creepy. Note here that he says she would have her own space, whereas quite often on the trip, that was not the case. However, at this point, she felt like she trusted him and that she'd found a great platonic friendship. Note these messages where he says, my gosh, you are so beautiful, and she puts, what the fuck, no you. And he puts, seriously, I can't even do words. Then this message here, where at the end Pinappi says, this is too wholesome. Now, if this isn't making their relationship clear, I don't know what is. But he goes on to say, you were like some kind of crazy shooting star from a strange galaxy, bright, pretty, and rare. Shot into my life. There's even a point where he says, close your eyes, I'll stay here for a bit until I know you're asleep. But I'll be here until you do. And she points out again that that is wholesome. I can't wait to be able to just talk to you as we fall asleep in person. Makes me warm just thinking about it. Puts his head on your shoulder. Sleep you. We have a huge week coming up before our adventure. Now, I'm not exaggerating at all when I say this is not even 10% of the inappropriate and strange things that he shared with her before they went to Japan. But I believe it gives an indication of what his intentions may have been before they went. Pinappi in this document has detailed and catalogued pretty much everywhere they stayed and everything that happened on their trip to Japan. She also details what happens after the Japan trip, but then eventually we come to when Pinappi first confronted him. Hello, I want you to be honest. Have you been looking for my lewd content? That's a very weird question. Why would you say that? Yes or no? Being 100% honest, I have definitely Googled in the past, but just as curious to what you had done, etc. But not any time recently. Why'd you ask? We both know that is a lie. Why are you lying? I'm so confused. I have Googled around your site and stuff to see if you removed some from Minecraft admins and things. I found your Ko-Fi a while back and it had some kind of lewdy looking stuff. I'm a little concerned why you think this is and what you believe is going on. Well, you see, you're still lying to me and I'm honestly disgusted. I'm worried. I've got you hidden away on all social media but not blocked. Why on earth am I lying to you? I did Google you the other day in a moment of weakness, I will admit. I wanted to know if you started all that shit again, OnlyFans, etc. I was curious if you were returning to it with all the changes. Patreon, OnlyFans, etc. I opened up the laptop today to clear the cache and make sure none of my accounts were logged in so that I could put it in the box with the rest of your stuff outside my room. The first thing I see is you looking up my lewd content and browsing it, along with some very disturbing Pornhub search results that showed up directly underneath it. I'm sorry, Nick, but what the fuck is wrong with you? Well, I got no excuse for that. I could really write a few paragraphs on how disgusted I am by your Pornhub searches. Pink-haired 18-year-olds? Yes. Teen porn? What the fuck is wrong with you, Nick? 100% honest, Rosie, I'm a lonely dude who has a horrid home life. That is not an excuse to look up my lewds. And yeah, I messed up. And teen porn of people who look like me. I know. I can't apologize. There is nothing I can do. My brain is very broken at the moment. It seems to become a pattern with Ghost that whenever there's any heat on him, he cites mental health. Be honest, Nick. Do you have feelings for me? Think about me in that way. No more bullshitting. I want the truth. I did, but I would never ever admit it or act on it in any way, ever. Because I knew if I went down that path, I'd ruin everything. And it was impossible anyway, so I locked it away. There is the truth. You touched my ass and boobs accidentally in Japan on a couple of occasions when you were massaging me. I shrugged it off as accidental. But how can you accidentally do that? That was 1,000,000% accidental. I promise you, I swear on everything. I promise you hand on heart. I never broached anything sexual or anything with you at all. Take a look at our entire history. There is actually plenty of evidence within this document that he did broach those kind of subjects and aimed them at Pinappi. You instead lied multiple times when confronted about your feelings. You having feelings did ruin everything, Nick. You obsessed with people I'd made friends with before any connections had been made. You're gorgeous, fun and lively. There is everything to love. I know there was no point going down that path. I know. Trust me, I know. You were proper stalking me, man. Bottling things up is never good. But I was very, very, very aware if I said anything, I'd be the same as all the other guys. So you lied to me and to everyone else. No, I was very, very content to just have you as a friend. Believe me on that. And make out to everyone that I'm crazy for asking you if you had feelings for me. You told people you never had any romantic feelings for me. I know this because I'm a super jealous person. And I would have freaked out at the concept of Kane or others, because there is no point telling anybody ever. You do realize that Kane and I got super close because you obsessing over it, right? It's an impossibility. You're obsessing over something that didn't actually ever exist. Legit, there was zero benefit to me admitting or saying anything else. Before Kane and I even started hanging out, it's not about admitting it. It's the fact that you lied to so many people and made me out to be a fucking crazy bitch. I didn't make you out to be crazy. I promise I always talk about you in a positive light. I can apologize, but it's never going to be enough. Yeah, I loved you, but it's pointless and always has been. It would only ever ruin things. So being your friend and being supportive was the best thing I could do. I was happy with that. You made me out to be insane to all your friends because I didn't send you messages back. No shit, I didn't send you messages back because I knew you had some kind of feelings for me. And I didn't want to sit there and enable it. I asked you multiple times whether you had feelings for me. And you told all these people that I was crazy for thinking it. Because I didn't want to be like every other guy. This isn't like every other guy. Ironic, huh? This is disturbing. This is psychologically fucked up. A bit further on it reads, I have never been a touchy-feely person. I hate being touched because of post-trauma. I swear to you on everything you mean to me. That was accidental. 1,000,000%. I swear on my own life. You think that it was because of my MCPH friends or Minecraft, but really that's a delusion you told yourself to try and justify things. I didn't even know I did. Shit went downhill that night in Japan. Rosie, I don't know how to make you believe me on that. We slept next to each other almost every night. I never tried anything. I always made sure you were comfortable. There were literally multiple times that I asked you to have a separate bed when one was ordered or available, and you got upset and sad because you wanted to cuddle. I had to literally sleep in such an awkward ankle because you kept trying to spoon me in your sleep. I've been sitting here for months thinking that shit was accidental. And his response to this is just a sad face. But then I see your fucking browsing history. I admit, I snooped. I looked that far back out of disgust and curiosity. I'm just... The 18-year-old pink-haired girl porno, what the fuck, dude? I thought we were platonic and cuddling and stuff was allowed. It's not platonic when you have feelings for me and want to do shit. It never got to this until recently. Why out of all things was one of the first things you do when meeting me look up whether I have OnlyFans? When I first met you back in Jan, you legit looked up Pinnapy OnlyFans. Even after that, man. And for fuck's sake, yesterday? Why? I literally just cannot understand. I'm going to admit, having my entire browser history just there is pretty intimidating. I mean, I'm sorry for snooping, but, and you would have known the answers to a lot of this, it's pretty intimidating to see. Literally searches to fall in love with best friend. How to stop falling in love with best friend. I fell for you hard in Japan. Before that, it was truly just platonic, etc. I couldn't help it. And no amount of apologizing is ever going to help that. Bottling it up was hard. I just wanted to spend some time with you, and I didn't know how to handle my heart/emotions. This is my fault for sure. But if I said something, you would have left instantly. I removed myself from everything to do with you. You can block me everywhere, and I imagine I'm completely dead to you. So here he's trying to suggest that the course of action is that she just blocks him and has nothing to do with him. I want you to tell people you've lied to the truth. But I assure you 1,000,000% that anything that made you uncomfortable was an accident. This is very strange. All of a sudden he's saying anything that made you uncomfortable was an accident. Well, you know exactly what you did, so which of it was an accident? Okay, I can do that, but I need you to know I would never, ever, ever say anything to make you feel uncomfortable. I went very far out of my way to make sure you were safe and looked after, always. That was my priority. I think you know this. I literally got disowned by Clone's group because of the things you said. I agree. I don't care if it was you or if it was Soggy, I don't care. I have spoken to Clone, he knows it's my fault. Your words alone ruined all friendships I had within that group of people. You decided to make tweets and Discord posts and stream implications and DMs to every single person you know and love. What do you think I should do and how? Just about not admitting feelings, etc. All of it, Ghost, all of it. No more lies. The only lie was that I loved you just as a friend. I do love you as a friend as well, let me stress that, but yeah, I have no idea how I'm supposed to word that to people. I'll work with you on it if you like. Rosie was best friend. Was accidentally never told her for fear of ruining friendship. Was clingy and emotionally needy because of this. Apologise that I was never honest and take responsibility. I'll be honest, I'm scared you don't believe me about Japan. That it was infinitely accidental apart from my interaction history with you. I need to make a list of people I need to tell this to. You should include this on Twitter as well, as it affects a large majority of people in our shared community. Social justice will go insane and misread everything. As long as you tell the truth, you've got nothing to worry about. Especially if you reply saying you don't believe me about Japan, I won't be replying to your tweet. Don't you believe me about Japan? Because that was legitimately the best holiday I've ever had in my life, and it had everything to do with location and you. Because I will be honest and admit that I am scared that this is a trap you are setting for me here. I've seen how social media is these days. You're joking, right? Because if I told anybody you felt uncomfortable in Japan, I get crucified. Legitimately. This is what the world is like these days. The truth is, I did feel uncomfortable in these moments. Japan was an amazing holiday and experience. I will never forget that. I also still to this day put all the good memories in front of the times that I felt uncomfortable. For the record, we were platonically close in Japan, right? In all those moments. Falling asleep on me in the plane and me hugging you and stroking your brow. Back rubs. Brushing your hair for hours. The exact moment I fell in love with you was in Yazawa, brushing your hair, and you played Animal Crossing and I was looking out to the snow. Legit, that moment was perfect. I'm being honest. I had no idea these moments made you uncomfortable in the slightest. It started out that way. I could tell when things started to derail and become uncomfortable. It was as you started developing feelings. Your actions and words became less platonic and more like you're obsessed with me. It was honestly scary. I can understand that. How can someone saying, "Why are you touching my boob/ass?" is not a sign of being uncomfortable? I remember you saying, "Careful, that's my boob," and I instantly pulled back and I did not realise. I promise you this. Did I ever even once talk about, approach, suggest anything sexual to you ever? I think it happened twice, and I remember because I panicked and made sure to be very careful. So if you were panicking and being very careful, what are the chances that it could happen again? If you don't own up to your mistakes, I'm not going to stay quiet. I came to you as a courtesy. Up until a point, I considered you a really amazing and close friend. You've betrayed my trust and my respect for you. Do the right thing, man. I have out the entire message history of both Discord and Facebook. There is not a single time I have broached anything sexual to you or our friendship. I'm not a sexual abuser. We know once again that this isn't true, and he has broached sexual things many, many times, even before Japan. Now we're going to go back to what happened just after Ghost had posted about me. By this point, I had looked through all the evidence. I was then attacked by many of his viewers and followers, with one of the main comments being that the assault had been buried 2 years ago and should not be brought back up. The thing is that Pinnippy felt she was pressured into silence and was against somebody with a much bigger platform than herself, and in the end, despite never changing her story, as has been claimed, she almost had to give up on being believed to people associated with ghosts. So as I said, the document is very lengthy and there's no way I can possibly get all of it on video. However, I'm going to point out the most important parts in regards to the allegations and perhaps gain some perspective on why there's so much hate geared towards Pinnippy. I have reached out and spoken to some of Ghost's closest friends and asked for anything, but they basically have nothing except words about how bad a person Pinnippy is. They don't even have any rough dates of anything that occurred, and they say a lot of the evidence was deleted. But I just find it all very strange that given the alleged 2 years of harassment from Pinnippy, that nobody kept any evidence. Not Ghost, nor any of his friends or viewers. Now, given all the broadly terrible behaviour they have accused her of, I find it simply unfathomable that there can't be any shred of evidence anywhere. Seeing these tweets was also pretty worrying, especially tweets like this where the tweeter says that they have Ghost back no matter what, and then it turns out that they hadn't even read any of the evidence that was already there. There's also tweets like this that suggest the only people that should be talking about it are the parties involved. Now, you see, this is part of the problem because that did happen. They had a conversation with a mediator, but of course, not everything was resolved. Because when you come to a point where most of your friends were from a community and they now don't believe you, what else exactly can you do? It's not a great look when you choose me of befriending people and then weaseling out information from them because, well, that's simply not true. And it certainly wasn't true with Ghost because I was completely upfront about speaking to him and the questions that I had, but he did not want to give me anything. So it seems to me like many conversations were had behind closed doors because there is no documented evidence of where all these people got their information from. But of course, this level of disdain for Pinapie must have come from somewhere. Ghost started to tag people in posts that had been friends with Pinapie for a while. When he was unfollowed by somebody, he messaged Twootles to try and find out what was going on, and it looks a little bit suspicious from my point of view. He also made regular tweets suggesting that he was being stalked and harassed. He would not mention Pinapie in a lot of these tweets, but he also wouldn't correct anybody who assumed it was her replying in the threads. So it's my opinion that it's pretty safe to assume that these tweets are all about Pinapie. He also talks about going to the police on several different occasions, and yet has no evidence to offer against Pinapie. He would also make titles in his streams about him having bad mental health, and then he would make references to Pinapie or allude to things that Pinapie had done through the start of the stream. He would make posts on Twitter saying that Pinapie had sabotaged deals and sponsorships that he had gained, except he didn't back it up with any evidence. But there is evidence of burner accounts going and telling companies that Pinapie has worked with that she is a stalker and a harasser. And again, even back in this time, when the person from the company asked for evidence of this, they didn't have any. He even likes to suggest that unless you're a partner or subgifter, then you get blocked and harassed. Again, there's nothing here to back it up, and at this point, from my point of view, it starts to really look like a smear campaign. Although on this same post, there is an ally of Ghost saying that actually they haven't had any harassment. There are many, many more tweets like this, again, and they are all in the document. It starts to feel, from my point of view, that a lot of this stuff is not backed up because there is nothing to back it up, and actually, it was just this smear campaign that got into a lot of people's heads. Again, that is just my opinion, but I just can't see how everyone would be so adamant that Ghost was telling the truth and that Pinapie had done all these terrible things, despite there being no evidence whatsoever. From an outsider's perspective, if you're never taken seriously, it becomes pretty obvious as to why you would not try and bring a lot of these things to light, especially when some of these people have a sizable platform. I want to reiterate again that I approached Pinapie about making this video, and I want to reiterate again, I thought it was very important for this story to be heard. This video is not monetized, I am not making any money off it, and I think one of the biggest messages involved, and I think one of the biggest messages that we can take away from this video is fandom can be a very scary thing. Always ask for evidence and receipts of everything that needs backing up. It doesn't mean you don't have to believe that person, but it doesn't mean that the other person is necessarily not telling the truth. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next time.